अस्सलाम वालेकुम स्टूडेंट्स, कैसे हैं आप? मैं खैरियत से हूँ, शुक्रिया. And last time we were having a very good talk on effects of communication. When we talk so much about communication and mass communication and intercommunication, we need to understand what impressions communication bear on society. And in this connection, we were talking about communication helps societies in so many ways. It has a bearing, in fact, I would say, it has a bearing on societies in so many ways. First is, it helps you in discovering so much. It helps you discover physical things around, ideas of different people, particularly in the area of research and development, where people have worked over time. In the first part of century, some idea was floated, and you would find after 20 years someone has worked more on it because that was communicated to the people in the coming generations. And we took an example of radio, how radio developed. Some people worked in the early part of 19th century. And in fact, they floated some ideas that taking a voice to a distance beyond the normal limit of human communication was possible. They worked on it, but they could not integrate it into so many things because you need more things. But the idea continued to be communicated to the coming generations, and when it came to the generation of Marconi was the one who was able to integrate all what was there in the form of different ideas into what we today know as radio. And what a change. When radio came in mass communication, this technology came in communication, in mass communication. We all understand what change it brought to lives in different societies. I would say the whole world is a changed world. A world before radio and world after radio, to me, they are two different worlds. But you see how it was possible? It was possible because of communication. As I very proudly say, we all students of communication are very proud to say that communication perhaps is the subject, and all the rest of the subjects are parts of one way or the other, this subject of communication. All this growth and discoveries had been made possible because of communication. The people have traveled the world centuries ago. They might have enjoyed or they might have suffered because of poor traveling facilities and the hardships of weather and terrains and the wear of not knowing the people where you are moving, the great travelers. And we talked about we talked about Al-Biruni, and we talked about Marco Polo. Centuries ago, they traveled from Venus to China. But what they did, because of this communication facility, they talked to the people of their society that there lie another world at some distance. That must have helped to bring that distance little closer, the people of two societies little closer to each other in understanding how their people lived. Discovery process is where the communication comes very strongly. Then there are areas where we help each other. Because of this communication, we can save lives of people in so many ways. As we talked about tsunami and earthquake here, even in a very small incident where there is a fire in a building, this is communicated immediately to the rescuers, and the rescuers come from all around. And so many lives are saved, so much property is saved. It's only because, students, this communication, the tool of communication, is available to the mankind. And one area which is very amazing is relaxing. Because of communication, you are made to relax. You are going through a book of jokes. You're worried about something and you're very tired. You just go through a book of light writing, like book of jokes, and you laugh, you enjoy. It's because of this communication. You are watching a play on television, it's a comic play, and after this half an hour play, you are entirely a different person. Because the anxiety which had accumulated in your mind and was not allowing you to think of anything healthy and think positively, it was a hurdle. This worriness was a hurdle, and you were not able to think anything. But after watching this comic play, you laugh, and you are a different person. Now you can think afresh. You feel yourself a fresh person again, and you are in quite a good position to restart your thinking process and conclude something on the positive note, on the positive direction. This is quite possible. If you continue to worry because of different reasons, at times you are at a breaking point, you cannot think any further. You come to a blind alley as far as thinking is concerned. Relaxing, watching a match, your favorite team wins, and you are so joyful. It's a very tense match, and it's a tie match. For instance, it's a quarterfinal stage, knockout stage. If your team wins, you are in the semifinals. Otherwise, you are knocked out. You are in the semifinals, and you are enjoying it. Every nation is a very common phenomenon. It's not specific to one tribe or one society. It's a common characteristic for all the societies. Your favorite team wins, and you are rejoicing. This communication, what we are talking about, just the effects of what it bears on the society, is this communication we are talking about. It helps you in discovering so many things. It enables you to help the humanity around. If you are a doctor, you are telling other people how to be safe under these circumstances these days because of this epidemic or whatever it is. Or if there is a serious problem like cancer, a doctor is telling you, a team of doctors is telling you. This communication is helping you in a tremendous way. And then, as we talked about, this relaxation that comes to you because of your understanding, not your understanding of communication, but the way communication comes to you. If you are not a formal student of communication, even then communication comes to you to relax you. When you are reading a book, when you are watching something on television, you are watching a movie, you go and watch a movie in a cinema, a movie of your interest, and you are a relaxed person. You're quite worried at a moment, and a phone comes from a friend who's a very jolly sort of a person. He makes you laugh, and after the telephone, you are a different person. You have forgotten about your anxiety, your worriness. You're quite hearty after that call. You are a different person. So all that is possible because of communication. And they're not confined to these things. It also happens in time and space. Communication has its bearing in the sense of time and space. Something is said 200 years ago, 300 years ago, or even before. For instance, thousands of years ago, Aristotle said something. You read it now, and you are a different person. You are more wise. You are more knowledgeable. And you feel that now you are more in confidence. That are very essential elements in a human being's life. So you see, this communication has traveled over time. It has traveled over centuries. And also in space. You are in this part of the world and you are hearing something interesting happening or something newsworthy happening in which you take interest. At a very remote area, in a different continent, you learn it because communication has made it possible for you. For instance, your cousin is, or your brother is there in a different, at a far-off continent. You are talking to the person on telephone, on the net these days, or some other means. You are enjoying your relationship and company and talking to each other. It's because of communication. You see, all these effects of communication are so strong in our daily life that we cannot think of a life for a while. We cannot think of a life without having this communication around. You simply remove this communication from your life and you would find the life is barren, life is useless, and life has perhaps no meaning. But since it has all these things, so that means what is making these things integrated is communication. Communication is making you feel the player of your life. It is making you help other people. It is enabling you to find so many things, discover so much for yourself and for the people around you. And you see this very modern trend of what we call a globalization. They say the whole world is converting into a small village, and it is in fact marching towards this goal. If it has not been converted into a village yet, it is very fast marching. It will be like a village. It will be a small place. In real terms, in real sense of the word. Again, what is making this possible is the communication. Communication is helping people learn in time and space, as I said, and bring different ideas closer. As we were talking last time when we were here, that in the area of political life, in the better understanding of democracy, in the sense of people's right, in the sense of constitutions, in the sense of all those civic things people have been striving for over the centuries. In the area of business, the business people are learning what is lying in what part of the world and how this trade can be boosted and how the trade can go up. And that is going on. The growth rate has gone up, has increased. And most people are benefiting. And all, to me, as we often talk this is possible because of communication. This tool is available to us. We call communication. The communication is having its bearing in society in so many ways. As we talked in detail, and just a recap of what we were talking. And now, and today's topic, we come to the today's topic, as you might be knowing it because you have got those handouts with you. We are talking today on the subject of communication and culture. Culture, as we will be talking shortly, the understanding of culture is perhaps a must for students of communication. And to understand communication, it may not be as an essential thing for students of different subjects, but for students of communication, to understand culture. In fact, when we will talk about culture, we will talk more about what is the difference in the cultures and where the communication comes in between. We will talk in this sense more. But we need to understand culture. One thing we understand from our all previous talks, that a society gets little changed as we travel from one point to another. In the ancient times, in पुराने ज़मानों में तो ये था कि आप जिसे कहते हैं 10 कोस के फासले पे, if you have traveled some 10 kilometers or 15 kilometers, you would find a different tribe, different people. But in these days, maybe you cover more distance to find different people. But the fact remains that the world is far from a position or a point where all people are thinking alike or they are living in one culture. People still on this planet are divided into different cultures. As we talk about culture, we fully understand the variation in culture is perhaps the strongest hurdle in taking your message across. As a student of communication, we fully understand that a slight change at the time of sending a message. For instance, if you are sending a message and you are serious, and you are sending a message and you are smiling, you are sending the same message and you are crying, the person who is receiving the message would attach different meanings to that piece of communication, the same set of words. This is what we fully understand from what we have already talked in different sittings. And as you are students of communication, you know this, I think, the best. That a small change at the time of sending a message would change the meaning of the message at the receiving end. A small change. आपने एक बात कही, आपने देखे आपने किसी से गुस्से से कहा कि आपने किसी से कहा दफा हो जाओ, आपने किसी बच्चे से कहा, फिर आपने सिर्फ यही वाला सेट ऑफ वर्ड्स कहा, अपने चेहरे के ऊपर बहुत सीरियस और अपनी आवाज की जो लेवल है उसको जरा हाई पिच पे गेन करते हुए कि दफा हो जाओ. Now it bears two different meaning. The set of word is the same. इतनी स्लाइट चेंज आने से उसके मीनिंग जो है वो बदल जाते. और ये हम उन दो अफराद की बात कर रहे हैं जहां पर अभी मैस कम्युनिकेशन इन्वॉल्व नहीं हुआ. ये हमारी फेस टू फेस कम्युनिकेशन जैसे मुख्तलिफ लोगों की आपस में होती रहती है, हम उसकी बात कर रहे हैं. वहां पर ये आलम है एक मामूली सा फर्क, और ये तो सिर्फ लहजे का और चेहरे के तासुरात का. अगर कोई लफ्ज चेंज हो जाए, कोई उसमें लफ्ज जो है वो आप और इंसर्ट कर दें, मामूली सी चेंज आ जाए. चेंज ये भी हो सकती है कि वही वाली बात एक 10-12 साल का बच्चा कह रहा है और वही वाली बात एक 60-65 साल का बुजुर्ग कह रहा है. तो उनके समझने में जो उसको रिसीव कर रहा है उस बात को, जमीन आसमान का फर्क हो. लोग तो बाज़ इस बात को भी बहुत माइंड कर जाते हैं ना कि ये तो जी एक बच्चे ने आके दावत दी थी, कोई बड़ा आके दावत देता तो हम समझते हैं कि ये कोई सीरियस बात भी है. फैमिलीज में इस तरह आप नोटिस करते होंगे स्टूडेंट्स, बहुत कॉमन चीज है जो हम ऑब्जर्व कर सकते हैं. दैट गोज इन दिस डायरेक्शन व्हाट वी आर टॉकिंग. मैसेज वही है, फैक्ट रिमेन्स कि ये किसने कहा है. किसी फैमिली से किसी बच्चे ने आके कहा है तो लोग विल नॉट टेक इट सीरियसली. हाँ, अगर किसी बड़े ने आके वही मैसेज, बिल्कुल वही सेट ऑफ वर्ड्स वो कहा है, पीपल विल टेक इट वेरी सीरियसली. और इन एनी सॉर्ट ऑफ मिसअंडरस्टैंडिंग पीपल विल कम आउट विद अ वेरी प्लेन एक्सक्यूज कि जी वो बच्चों ने कहा था तो हम समझे कि ये तो शायद सीरियस नहीं है. You see, the element of seriousness has come with the change in the rank of the people who are sending the message. इतना नाजुक काम है वो. मुझे जो मीर तक मीर ने कहा ना कि ले सांस भी आहिस्ता, कि नाजुक है बहुत काम. कम्युनिकेशन के ऊपर इससे ज्यादा परफेक्ट लाइन और शायद कम से कम उर्दू लिटरेचर में मेरे सामने कम्युनिकेशन का मामला इतना नाजुक है कि एक मिसअंडरस्टैंडिंग पैदा होने में बिल्कुल फर्क ना. क्यों? जरा सी चेंज आ जाए, हल्की सी चेंज. और आप सोचें स्टूडेंट्स, व्हेन वी आर इंडल्जिंग इन मैस कम्युनिकेशन एंड वी आर क्रॉसिंग lines of cultures, we are from one culture to another culture. I belong to another culture. And I'm talking to people who belong to a different culture. मैं एक एशियन हूँ, फॉर इंस्टेंस. मैं अपने कल्चर का दायरा एशिया के अगर कॉन्टिनेंट पर रख लूँ, मैं एन एशियन. इफ आई एम ट्राइंग टू सेंड अ मैसेज टू पीपल ऑफ नॉर्थ अमेरिका, मुझे उनकी कोई हैबिट्स का, किसी और चीज़ों का, मुख्तलिफ चीज़ों का नहीं आइडिया. मैं उन्हें मैसेज इस तरह से भेज रहा हूँ जैसे मैं समझ रहा हूँ, जैसे हम बात करके बात समझते हैं, बात को करते हैं. मैं तो उसी पैरामीटर्स को यूज़ करते हुए अपनी बात कर रहा हूँ. मुझे क्या पता कि जो नॉर्थ अमेरिका में लोग हैं वो हाथों के जेस्चर के मानी और ले लेते हैं. मैं तो यहाँ पे आदी हूँ, जब हम लोग यहाँ बात करते हैं तो हम बात करते हुए जनाब अस्सलाम वालेकुम और इस तरह की बहुत सारे बॉडी जेस्चर्स करते हैं एज वी टॉक टू ईच अदर. अब हो सकता है कि ये जेस्चर्स जो हैं वो वहाँ पे एक्सेप्टेबल ना हो या इनके मीनिंग कुछ और हो. इट्स क्वाइट पॉसिबल. तो कितना मुश्किल हो जाएगा मुझे अपना मैसेज अक्रॉस द कॉन्टिनेंट भेजना. तो जब कल्चर्स की चेंज आ जाती है, अब कल्चर जो है, पहले मुझे बात कर लेंगे कल्चर है क्या. अगरचे वी आर नॉट मोर ऑन डिफाइनिंग कल्चर है, वी आर मोर टू फाइंड व्हाट इज द रिलेशनशिप बिटवीन कम्युनिकेशन एंड कल्चर. बट जस्ट टू अंडरस्टैंड के ब्रॉड टर्म्स में कि कल्चर जो है वो है कि इतना कहा जाता है. यूं भी कहा जाता है कि कल्चर इतना कॉम्प्लिकेटेड सा, एक एम्बिगुअस सा सब्जेक्ट है कि इसकी कोई 2000 से ज्यादा डेफिनेशंस पाई जाती कल्चर के ऊपर. बट व्हाट वी जनरली अंडरस्टैंड बाय कल्चर इज, अगर इसको इसकी जो एक बहुत ब्रॉड एंड वेरी कॉमनली मेड डेफिनेशन ऑफ कल्चर इज द लिविंग स्टाइल ऑफ द पीपल. द वे पीपल लिव इज देयर कल्चर. अब how the people live, the way they live is something which in fact encompasses so many things. If we just count briefly, what is their religion? What is their language? Sometimes people think language is a stronger point than their religion. The bond of language is stronger than sometimes the bond of language, the bond of religion. And if you talk about two people who speak Spanish and both are Christian, the bond of their talking in Spanish is stronger than their bond being Christian. And they say also this is true about so many other areas. अगर जो अरबी हैं, जैसे अजमी और नॉन अजमी का, अजमी का और दूसरे जो बाहर के लोग हैं उनका, अरबी और अजमी का जो एक है, जो बाहर के लोग हैं, अरब जो है उनका अपना एक बड़ा स्ट्रॉन्ग लैंग्वेज बेस्ड एरिया है. इस तरह जो चाइना में, जो जापान में और इस तरह के जो लोग हैं जो इंग्लिश स्पीकिंग हैं, उनका अपना एक है, इर्रिस्पेक्टिव कि आपका ताल्लुक किस रिलीजन से है. रिलीजन, योर लैंग्वेज, योर ड्रेसिंग अप. हर कल्चर के लोग जो हैं दे हैव देयर इंडिविजुअलिटी इन ड्रेसिंग अप. यू फाइंड पीपल इन चाइना, they have their in Japanese, you find there are different dresses. You go in Far East Asian countries, you find a different people are dressing up in a different way. In South Asia, in Pakistan, in Afghanistan, in Iran, in India, in Nepal, in all these belts, you find people are dressing up in a different way. Just go in the Central Asia and Russia and Europe and America and Africa. Is a distinct feature. Just like languages, you would find a different language in China, in Far East, in South Asia. You would find Urdu here. You would find Urdu spoken and understood in most part of South Asia. True, but still in pockets people have different languages. They have their grammar. And so about the whole world. Dressing up, eating habits. People have different eating habits. You go in China, you find chopsticks. लोग chopsticks से जो है वो खा रहे हैं. हमारे यहाँ लोग हाथ से खा रहे हैं. आप और आगे चले जाएं तो लोग छुरी कांटे से खा रहे हैं. So they have a different eating habits. It's not only the culinary, जो जिस तरह से लोग पकाते हैं, how they cook is different, but also how they serve food and how they eat food is also different in different parts of the world. रहते सहते कैसे, घर कैसे उन लोगों के, बाज़ जगहों पे खुले खुले घर हैं, बाज़ लोग जो हैं वो फ्लैट्स के फॉर्म में वर्टिकल लाइंस में रह लेते हैं, बाज़ बड़े बड़े घरों में रहते हैं, बाज़ जो हैं अभी तक एग्रेरियन स्टाइल में रह रहे हैं, जैसे ज़राअत का ज़माना था एक ज़माने में, उस तरह से रह रहे हैं। बाज़ जो हैं बड़े पॉश एरियाज़ में रह रहे हैं, बहुत बने हुए घर हैं, बहुत महंगे उनके घरों में काम हुआ हुआ, इस तरह से रह रहे हैं, वेयर यू लिव। सो इसमें बहुत सारे ऐसे फैक्टर्स शामिल हो जाते हैं जिसको मिला के आप यू सिंपली से द वे पीपल लिव इज देयर कल्चर। नाउ वेरिएशन is there on every step, and we, the student of communication, are so much aware of this variation in communication. We are in fact disturbed by a variation, a slight variation, because it may give a different meaning. As we were talking earlier, a very small variation at the time would be understood in a different way. And at cultural level, the change is so much, you can't do without. You have to accept, you have to take upfront this change, and then you have to see what communication can do in this area. As we talk about cultures, we need to understand first what are different areas of cultures in broad terms, then thinking of how we can maneuver to penetrate into different cultures by conveying same meaning. A very hard nut to crack, I tell you. It's very difficult to make people of different cultures to understand the same thing. But still, we will try. But first we will see how this talk about culture takes different shapes. As we talk about students' cultures, first thing we encounter is enculturation. As we talk about cultures, well, enculturations mean the culture जो आपने अपने बड़ों से वसूल पाया है, जिस तरह आपके बड़े रहते थे उसी तरह आप रहते हैं. You have just inherited what in culture is known as enculturation. आप बहुत सारी चीजें ऐसी होती हैं which are encultured, जो आपके एज एन इंडिविजुअल और एज ए फैमिली जो आपको आपके विरासत में आपको मिलती हैं. जैसे बहुत सारे केसेस में, मेजॉरिटी ऑफ केसेस में, योर रिलीजन इज व्हाट यू हैव इनहेरिटेड फ्रॉम योर पेरेंट्स. आपके माँ बाप ईसाई हैं तो आप ईसाई हैं, वो मुसलमान हैं तो आप मुसलमान हैं, आप वो हिंदू थे आप हिंदू हैं, वो सिख थे आप सिख हैं. बहुत सारे केसेस में वी ऑल्सो फाइंड पीपल चेंजिंग देयर रिलीजन. इन वी टॉकिंग इन जनरल टर्म्स, we find you get this language जो आपके वो कहते हैं ना मदर लैंग्वेज, जो माँ की जबान है, जो दिस मीन्स जो आपके पेरेंट्स की जबान है वही आपकी जबान होती. अगर उनकी जबान हिंद को है आपकी जबान भी हिंद को होगी, उनकी जबान बराहवी है आपकी भी बराहवी होगी. भले से आप अपनी जिंदगी में और बहुत सारी जबानें सीख लें, आप अंग्रेजी सीख लें, फ्रेंच सीख लें, इटालियन सीख लें, अरेबिक सीख लें, यू कैन, क्योंकि जबान तो सीखी जा सकती है, ज़बान तो कोई ऐसी चीज़ नहीं. लेकिन आपकी जो घर की ज़बान है वही है जो आपकी मदर की है, जो आपके पेरेंट्स की है. आपके पेरेंट्स की ज़बान पंजाबी है तो आपकी ज़बान भी पंजाबी. पश्तो में वो बात करते हैं आपके पेरेंट्स तो आप भी पश्तो में करेंगे. वो पर्शियन में करते हैं आप भी पर्शियन में करेंगे. वो दरई में करते हैं आप भी दरई में करेंगे. दरई क्या है? दर्रे की ज़बान. ऐसी बहुत सारी ज़बानें जो हैं वो आप उसको बोलते हैं. दिस इज कॉल्ड एनकल्चरेशन. जो चीजें आप अपने उनसे लें, जैसे खाने की आते हैं, हम लोग इसी तरह से खाते हैं जिस तरह हमारे बड़े खाते थे. जैसे हम लोग हाथ से खाते हैं, साउथ एशिया में लोग जो हाथ से खाते हैं क्योंकि हम ये देखते हैं कि हमारे बड़े भी हाथ से खाते हैं. दिस इज अ कैरेक्टरिस्टिक, हमारी जो लाइफ स्टाइल है उसका. पहनते भी हम वही, जैसे नॉर्मली आप कमीज शलवार पहनते आप वही पहनेंगे. जो अमेरिकन लोग हैं वो वही पहनेंगे जो उनके बड़ों का एक लिबास है. You see, this is enculturation. जो students हैं communication के, what they encounter first as they study cultures, because you have to study cultures as a student of communication and particularly student of mass communication. Because when we talk about cultures, we more or less we talk about mass communication. Because we have other forms of communication within a culture, within a society. But as we talk about mass communication, we are fully now talking about multicultural society. Because if I'm working for a newspaper. What I report in a newspaper or what I write in a newspaper is not meant for only people living in my society. Any person can read it. And the paper can go any part of the world, and particularly with electronic media, radio and television, and now on the internet, you are communicating to the people of different cultures. So at the mass communication, essentially we need to understand cultures, because it is the study of cultures which helps us how to give our message in a way that it is understood very close to what is meant by the person who are sending the message. If you are faltering in the understanding of different cultures, your message may not go across the way you want it. So that is why we are studying what enculturation is and what the rest of the areas of cultures are. Enculturation, जैसे हमने कहा कि ये वो है जो आपको मिल जाती है, इसी वजह से हम जाने जाते हैं. एनकल्चरेशन का ये हिस्सा है कि मैं ये कहूँ कि मैं पाकिस्तानी हूँ, कोई ये कहे कि जी मैं बरतानिया से मेरा ताल्लुक है, कोई ये कहे कि मैं हस्पानवी हूँ, कोई ये कहे कि जी मैं तो अमरीकी हूँ. ये एनकल्चरेशन की निशानी है कि वो अपने आप को लिंक कर रहे हैं उस चीज़ के साथ what they have inherited as a culture, as a lifestyle. Lifestyle means all those areas which we just talked. एनकल्चरेशन को समझने के बाद स्टूडेंट्स दूसरा एरिया जो है वो जरा थोड़ा सा पेचीदा है, दैट इज एक्कल्चरेशन. एक्कल्चरेशन मीन्स adopting a different culture. It's a very difficult area. बहुत सारे लोग हमारे यहाँ ऐसे होते हैं जो acculturation में they live with acculturation, they change, they try sometime to change their living habits, their living style. That means they are changing their culture. It's a very difficult thing. But sometimes people do. आप एक जगह से छोड़ के दूसरी जगह पे जो है वो जाते हैं. इसके बारे में अगर आप कभी हिस्टोरिक पर्सपेक्टिव देखें तो बड़ा मुश्किल लोगों को लगा. लोग अपने अपने ट्राइब्स, अपने अपने एरियाज में रहते थे. फॉर सेंचुरीज दे वुड ओनली लिव इन देयर एरियाज. एट टाइम्स आप देखेंगे कि बहुत सारे लोग एक शहर में रहना पसंद करते. अगर आपका ताल्लुक जो है वो ठठा से है तो यू फाइंड इट वेरी डिफिकल्ट कि आप ठठा से निकल के बदीन में जाके सेटल हो जाएं. आप सखर को छोड़ के भावलपुर में जाके सेटल हो जाएं. अगर आप भावलपुर के रहने वाले हैं और वहाँ में आप रच बस गए हैं उस कल्चरल लाइफ में, उस लाइफ स्टाइल में, तो आपको ये बड़ा अजीब सा लगेगा कि आप जाके एक फर्ज करें कि आप गिलगित में जाके सेटल हो जाएं. हो भी जाते हैं लोग. जो एक्कल्चरेशन का अक्रंस है इट डज कम अबाउट. लेकिन होता ये है कि आप अपना जो कल्चर है उसके साथ ही वो रहने. वो क्या है, उन्होंने कहा, बड़े इब्राहिम ज़ौक़ का आपने नाम सुना होगा, बहुत बड़े शायर, गालिब के ज़माने में ही थे. वो कहते हैं कि गर्चे है मुल्के दकन में इन दिनों कदरे सुखन. कहते हैं कि सुना है हमने कि जो मुल्क दकन है आजकल वहाँ कदरे सुखन बहुत है. गर्चे है मुल्के दकन इन दिनों कदरे सुखन, कौन जाए ज़ौक़ पर दिल्ली की गलियां छोड़कर. अपनी जगह छोड़कर दूसरी जगह जाना, चाहे आपको ये पता हो कि यू वुड बी वैल्यूड देयर, इज वेरी डिफिकल्ट थिंग्स. और भी आपको ऐसा बहुत सारा मिलेगा जब आप हिस्ट्री में देखेंगे कि लोग जो हैं अपनी जगह छोड़ के दूसरी जगह जाना मुश्किल काम है. अब एक्कल्चरेशन में क्या है कि आप को किसी वजह से एक दूसरी सोसाइटी में जाना पड़ता है. जैसे लोग पाकिस्तान से चले गए अमेरिका. Now students, it's not possible if you move from one culture to another culture and you live there with your original culture. This is not possible. You have to acculture yourself according to the new culture where you are settling and where you are planning to live rest of your life or a better part of your life. Or if you feel that your coming generations would be living in that culture, you have to acculture yourself. You have to go through the process of acculturation, which means adopting the lifestyle of the culture where you have shifted. not an easy thing. It may take decades of an exercise, and even sometime living in a different culture, you are not fully accustomed to a new culture. बहुत एक आपके लिए एक एम्बैरेसिंग सिचुएशन है, आपके लिए वहाँ की वो सारी लैंग्वेज सीखनी, फिर उसकी स्लैंग को सीखना, फिर उन लोगों की जो कॉमन सोशल हैबिट्स हैं उसको उस तरह से समझना जिस तरह वहाँ के लोग समझ रहे हैं, जो कई नस्लों से उन रस्मों को, उन चीज़ों को प्रैक्टिस करते आ रहे हैं. आपको कदम कदम पे लगेगा कि ये एक नई चीज़ होगी, आपको वो अपने आप को एक्कल्चर करना पड़ेगा. फिर दिस प्रोसेस ऑफ एक्कल्चरेशन विल टेक प्लेस. व्हाट हैपन्स जब हम ये कल्चर की स्टडी करते हैं? वी टॉक अबाउट enculturation and acculturation. Enculturation means the culture you are having from your parents, and acculturation means that you are opting to the new culture. And here comes what is generally understood by a student of social sciences, that is cultural shock. To understand what cultural shock is very essential for students of mass communication, is more important for students of mass communication. Cultural shock means you have gone to a different culture, and you are restricting yourself in the mind. You are restricting yourself to your original culture, but you have to live according to the new culture. Since the world is coming close to each other, people are coming close to each other, but you see the cultural values, they exist perhaps as strongly as they have been over the centuries, over the millenniums. So you have to brave a new situation. Doesn't matter if you are able to go to Canada, or you are able to go to Australia, or you are going in South Africa, or if you are living in America. If you have moved from an Asian society onto these societies, you have to brave this situation of cultural shocks, because if you are thinking that the world has become a one village and you would be living according to your culture, it may not happen. Maybe your neighbor is disturbed the way you cook something. Here, if you cook things like those, I mean, it's a very common thing. Things are cooked here that way. But if you are cooking those things there, your neighbor may be coming to you and saying, I mean, what you are doing here? और आपको ये लगे कि ये तो बड़ा प्रॉब्लम होगा, और आप उसको ये नहीं कह सकते, well, we are doing this in our own house, who you are, because you have to live in a society. Otherwise, your neighbors would start having a peculiar feeling about you, and you would not like that. You have to change your habit, or you have to acculture. If you are not doing it, it is a cultural shock. What happens? In the West, in certain colleges, schools, particularly at a school level, to attend music and dancing classes is a must. Particularly in the county you are living, or in the district you are living, all the schools have made it mandatory that the children have to attend these music and dancing classes. You have moved from, for instance, from Pakistan to that district in America, and you are reluctant to send your daughter there. You say, well, we don't want this dancing class but it is a must. It has its credit points. If you are missing those classes, you are missing those credit points. And what to do? Well, they have swimming classes. That is a must for all the students of a certain age. You don't want to send your daughter to a swimming class. Likewise, here you have a separate colleges and universities for boys and girls. You have medical colleges separate for boys and girls. But in the West, and perhaps in most part of the world, there is no concept of having a medical college or a higher education where you have a separate colleges and universities for boys and girls. You have to study there, you have to get admission there. If you are living there for one reason or the other for a longer period, you have to send your children there in those colleges and universities. That may come as a cultural shock if you are not opting acculturation. If you are sticking to your culture, you have to face this cultural shock. And it's very embarrassing at times For instance, it is not a debate of sending your daughter or your son in a co-education college or things like this, swimming classes or dancing classes. Well, it may come in another way. You have gone to a hotel and you have asked for a particular food which you think is a halal meat, as we use this here in Pakistan. And after having the meal, you learn that by a mistake, what was served to you was a pork. आपने जो सुअर का गोश्त जो उन्होंने पकाया वो by mistake वो जो है वो आपको दे दिया. This you learn only when you have taken the food. You are not ready to accept things like this. And you are not going for acculturation. आप ये कॉम्प्रोमाइज कर ही नहीं सकते कि अब आप अपना रिलीजन चेंज कर लें या आप ये चेंज कर लें कि जी ठीक है यहाँ पे अगर पोक इज सर्व्ड और आप उसको ले लेंगे. आप यू आर नॉट कॉम्प्रोमाइजिंग ऑन दोज थिंग्स एंड यू आर नॉट गोइंग फॉर एक्कल्चरेशन. चलें स्कूल की हद तक या स्विमिंग क्लासेस की हद तक किसी हद तक आपने इसको एक्सेप्ट कर लिया कि ठीक है, बट यू कैन नॉट एक्सेप्ट द होल न्यू कल्चर. इट्स एन एरिया which is so much of concern for people in mass communication, because when you are talking on a radio or television, or when you are sending a message on internet, on computers, huge computer networking, or when you are writing something for a newspaper and which is meant for people across cultures, it's very difficult to find where the enculturation is, where the acculturation is, and where the cultural shock is. आप सोचिए, आप ने कल को बड़े होके जो है मैस कम्युनिकेशन में काम करना है तो कितना मुश्किल हो जाएगा आपके लिए. आप जो इस बात के बहुत ही कॉन्शियस हैं कि एक छोटी सी चेंज भी अगर आ गई बात करने में तो उसके मीनिंग और निकल आएंगे. ये चीज हमने आपको पहले इस्टेब्लिश कर दी. और सोचा जाए कि जहां पे इतनी बड़ी बड़ी चेंजेस हों, नजर आ रही हों, वहां पे आप कम्युनिकेशन कर पाएं मैस लेवल पे और उसके कोई ऐसे रिपरकशंस भी ना हो और आपके ऊपर कुछ ऐसा हरफ भी ना आए कि आपने कुछ ऐसी बात की है विच इज क्रिएटिंग सम कॉन्फ्लिक्ट. और इसके में हमने पिछले लेक्चर में बात की थी कि मैस कम्युनिकेशन में अनअवॉइडेबल सा है. जब आप मुख्तलिफ कल्चर के लोगों के लिए बात करते हैं तो ये मुमकिन नहीं होता, लेकिन उसको मिनिमाइज जो है वो किया जा सकता है. तो यहाँ पर भी जब हम कल्चर की बहस करते हैं, व्हेन वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट वेरिएशन इन कल्चर एंड विच इज वेरी मच, विच इज सो मच ऑल अराउंड, यहाँ पर भी हम बात करते हैं कि हाउ as a student of communication we can avoid doing something which should not hurt others, which should not come in the area of cultural shock and which should not be misunderstood. तो इसके कई जो हैं वो हल भी हैं हमारे पास. जब हम सॉल्यूशंस की तरफ आते हैं कि जब ये कल्चर की स्टडी करते हैं तो कल्चर और कम्युनिकेशन के एरिया में आते हैं तो किस तरह हम लोग कर सकते हैं एक डिफरेंट कल्चर में पेनिट्रेशन कम्युनिकेशन. तो इसके कुछ सॉल्यूशंस जो हैं वो भी अवेलेबल हैं. जैसा आप जब किसी दूसरे कल्चर के बारे में या दूसरे कल्चर में कम्युनिकेशन करना चाहें तो ये आपके लिए इज़ वेरी इसेंशियल फॉर यू. आजकल जो चीज़ें अवेलेबल हैं, आपको वहाँ के न्यूज़पेपर अवेलेबल हैं. यू फर्स्ट सी द प्रिंट मीडिया. फॉर इंस्टेंस अगर आपने कुछ ऐसा कहना है कि जो कनाडा के लोगों के लिए है तो आपके लिए बहुत ज़रूरी है. मतलब जैसे आप एक टीवी चैनल ओपन करने जा रहे हैं और आपको ये पता है कि अब हमारा चैनल जो है वो कनाडा में भी देखा जाएगा और आप कॉन्शियस हैं इस बात के एज ए स्टूडेंट ऑफ मैस कम्युनिकेशन, आप एक अच्छे प्रोड्यूसर हैं और आप कॉन्शियस हैं इस बात के कि कनाडा में अब हमारा ड्रामा देखा जाना है तो कैसा हमारा होना चाहिए, हमारी डिस्कशन कैसी होनी चाहिए, कुछ ऐसी क्या बात हम करें कि कुछ उसमें कॉन्फ्लिक्ट का एरिया ना निकले और वो बात उसी तरह समझी जाए द वे वी वांट टू बी टॉक टू द पीपल इन कनाडा. हाउ वी कैन wriggle out of this perplexed situation? One is you just go through first the print media of that culture. आप उनके अखबारात देखें, मैगजीन्स देखें, आपको अंदाज़ा हो जाएगा कि what language they use, what language they understand, and how much liberal they are, how much conservative they are, how much religious they are. Can they afford something if it is said against church? Or can they afford if something is talked against Catholic people? Or if you pass some remarks on the Pope, can they afford it? If you find, well, they can because their media is saying so. Then in your discussions, in your drama, in your news, in your views, you can take this liberty that it would have no repercussions and it will have no cultural shock actually. There will be no such thing as people of Canada who are now watching your channel would be saying something which they say they would not have understood it, or they say there is something is against their cultural value was being done. They would not be in that position if you have gone through this. And secondly, you have these videos of those cultures available these days with you, which help you understand the social norms of society. You can see, instead of reading in a newspaper, you can see how they people eat, how they people live, what type of houses they live, what are their normal day's activities, and at what time of the day they are relaxing, and at what time of the day they are busy, how their time frame goes to keep their people busy or engage in different jobs. So if you learn all these things, you may be sending your play at a time when people are relaxing, and you find more people would watch what you are airing or beaming in that part of the world, in that part of a different culture. So एक तो इसका solution ये है कि आप इस तरह की चीज़ों से करें, इसका मतलब यह है कि you prepare yourself in a way. दूसरा एक जो चीज़ है जिसको हम कहते हैं कि overcoming the fears of unseen. This is again very important. आपने कई दफ़ा नोटिस किया होगा कि कोई फॉरेन टूरिस्ट हैं, तो दे आर नॉट टॉकिंग टू द पीपल इन द स्ट्रीट्स. वो बड़े अपने अंदर ही रहते हैं. इट इज़ नॉट दैट दे फील सुपीरियर. जो ट्रेवलर्स होते हैं, दे आर डिफरेंट पीपल. They are beyond this consideration of being superior or inferior. They are travelers. They enjoy their travel across the world. The tourists are different type of people. If they are not mixing up with the people, generally as it is observed all around the world, it is a common phenomenon. They are not mixing with the local people generally. Why? Because they have a fear of unseen. They are afraid. वो इसलिए नहीं वो कहेंगे वो अंग्रेज है तो इसलिए नहीं वो बात कर रहे, वो इसलिए नहीं कर रहे होते कि उनको एक खौफ का एलिमेंट होता है. उन्हें ये खौफ होता है कि जो हमने बात की किसी से, तो ये ना हो कि हम कोई गलत बात कर दें. वो तो टूरिस्ट हैं यहाँ पे, कोई उनके लिए किसी किस्म का ऐसा सिचुएशन ना पैदा हो जाए, वो कोई ऐसा जेस्चर ना दे दें अपनी बॉडी से, अपने हाथ से, जैसे थम्स अप करते हैं. वो ये समझेंगे यहाँ पे थम्स अप का मतलब कुछ और है, या इसके मीनिंग कुछ ऐसे कर लिए जाएं जो ऑफेंसिव हो, और वो जो क्या है कि कल्चरल शॉक के जुमरे में ना आ जाता हो. ये सारी चीज़ें, ये जो फियर है ना, फियर ऑफ अनसीन, इसको ओवरकम करना. तो when you are in a mass communication, you need to understand what are the unseen fears of people who are in fact going in different cultures, different societies. If you mark those areas, as we said earlier, you can mark areas like the eating habits, their living styles, always. If you also make a study like this, what is the fear of unseen, you find yourself in quite a good position where you feel you can send a message which is very well understood by different people. And if I give you an example here, it's a very interesting example है, बहुत ही दिलचस्प सी सूरत हाल है. When you see the American people, आप किसी अमेरिकन से मिल के आए हैं तो वो अमेरिकन आपसे कहेंगे, इज वेरी ट्रू अबाउट अमेरिकन्स, के कम ओवर and pay us a visit. When an American says so, the American means that it's a friendly gesture. It does not mean that now it is mandatory on you to come and see me at my place. It is just a friendly gesture. You have shaken hands with a person, you are making yourself familiarized with the people around, and sometime a person would say, okay, come over and pay a visit to us. Well, that means it's a friendly gesture, and they accept you, they have liked you, and they want to have a relationship with you. And what if this is understood in its literal meaning, the way it is understood in this part of the word? हमारे यहाँ जैसे आप किसी से कह दें कि आप कभी हमारे यहाँ आइए, कोई ऐसे मिलते हुए कह दे, तो we take it mandatory कि हमने उसको लाजमन जाना। अब आप ये देखिए कि अगर आप अपने इस विजन के साथ, इस अंडरस्टैंडिंग के साथ वहाँ पे हैं, वी आर टॉकिंग कि हाउ मच वेरिएशन इन लाइफ स्टाइल इज। अगर आप अपने इसी उसके साथ के जो उन्होंने आपसे कहा है कि आप कभी आएँ और हमें एक विजिट पे करें, और आप दूसरे तीसरे दिन जो है वो उनके पास पहुँच जाएं, और आप अपनी दानिश में ये समझें कि आप उनको oblige कर रहे हैं कि उन्होंने कहा था, और आप जो है अपना वक्त निकाल के उनसे मिलने के लिए आए हैं, और वो ये सोचेंगे कि ये तो कोई बहुत सीरियस, हमने दावत नहीं दी थी इनको, ये कैसे हैं कि लोग खुद ही चले आए हैं। What a conflict. As a student of mass communication, we need to go down and understand up from this level of variation into societies. And we can have a help from so much literature these days available. It is here that communication helps us in having a better understanding of cultures, and in fact smoothens the way for us if we have this understanding with us of enculturation, of acculturation, and cultural shock, and all those means where we can overcome of this fear of unseen in a different culture, and the way different things are understood in a different way in different cultures. We need to understand this. As the students of mass communication particularly, we should avoid this situation that without having a clear understanding of a different culture, we are bombarding some idea on that culture, or we are sending messages and we are informing that society in our wisdom, in our way, but that is not being understood. That is going waste. We should avoid doing this exercise, which would not prove anything for us fruitful or positive. It is a better understanding of cultures, and then we can get help from this tool of mass communication. And that is how the globalization is taking place, because very many people all around the world, they are having a very serious exercise of understanding different cultures, and in fact then shaping their message in a way that it penetrates well, and in fact it fetches the result which you want, a positive result, which you want to communicate to the people all around the world. That much is for the day. And one more thing, as we do at the end of all these exercises, we go learning about one more term in mass communication. We are going alphabetically. Last time we were talking about breakout boxes, block booking and breakout boxes. I understand you remember what we were talking about breakout boxes. That was when you go through a long article, you would find in a newspaper that important points are taken in a separate blocks. Important points, those are called breakout boxes. And here, today, we are going through another term, that is broadside. Well, students, broadside is a very common term in mass communication. And in the early days of mass communication, this means the pamphlets and all those handbills and things like this, which are published on one side of the page. They are called broadside. And here, with this understanding of broadside, we come to an end for the sitting today. Next time, with the next topic, we will be seeing each other again. Till then, it's Khuda Hafiz.